of a frightened teenage girl who was being forced to wed, and 3 times her age. You are a small girl. Come sit here next to me. I will tell you about Georgia underneath the shade. She said, this is a patch of Africa where women rule. This is our own village. No one treats you cruel. Here our rights are sacred. When you walk through our door, you won't have to put up with their nonsense anymore. Joseph Kukule still remembers the rage he felt that day. But when his sobbing wife came home, her body raped and torn, he pulled a knife on her and said she brought him shame. She ran to Rebecca, and Umoja village was born. They said, this is a patch of Africa where women rule. This is our own village. No one treats you cruel. Here our rights are sacred. When you walk through our door, you won't have to put up with their nonsense anymore. Cheeky woman, troublemaking lady. This is a song I sing in honor of the women who would change the status quo. On every continent, you'll find them sharing what they know. When women remain silent, no one thinks that they have anything to say. Rebecca, Lola, Soli, others show us another way. This is a patch of Africa where women rule. This is our own village. No one treats you cruel. Here our rights are sacred. When you walk through our door, you won't have to put up with their nonsense anymore. Oh yeah, yeah. This is a patch of Africa where women rule. Oh yeah. This is our own village. This is our own village. No one treats you cruel. Here our rights are sacred. Oh, when you walk through our door, you won't have to put up with their nonsense anymore. Cheeky woman, troublemaking lady. Oh yeah, yeah. Cheeky woman. Oh yeah. Troublemaking lady.
Good evening, everyone. Because you are alive, everything is possible. That is from Vietnamese Tien Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh. Welcome to Brooklyn for Peace's 2022 PathMakers to Peace virtual gala. We're back again on Zoom, but hopefully we'll be able to have our 2023 gala in person. This is our 9th anniversary, and this year we are acknowledging 4 remarkable people and a wonderful organization. It's a long road, and we're still walking it. And along the way, we have found oases that sustain us, gives us hope to remain committed to the unshakable belief that yes, social justice and peace is possible. Your continued support for the past 39 years is actual proof of that. Before we begin the program, I want to thank all of those who helped us organize this event, our fundraising committee, the callers, the Israel-Palestine Committee, Peace and Economic Justice Committee, Brooklyn for Peace's main board and advisory board, and of course, all of you who support us through donations, membership, and volunteering. It is the heart that is important, Nichiren Daishonin. A sense of gratitude expands the heart, Daisaku Ikeda. Now we begin the program. I feel very grateful to be able to introduce a young woman who has humbly captured the spirit of the peace and social justice movement. She's a rare gem that invigorates and soothes at the same time. Her knowledge and understanding of the issues, her ability to listen, coupled with her honesty and sincerity, is exactly what Brooklyn for Peace needs to enter into a new chapter into the future of the peace movement. I present to you Brooklyn for Peace's Executive Director, Michaela Zerkes.
Thanks, Veronica. That was a very kind introduction. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us and tuning in tonight. We're so glad to have you here and so grateful for your support of Brooklyn for Peace. As I'm sure a lot of folks are already familiar, Brooklyn for Peace has been working for the elimination and the prevention of war since our founding in 1984. Through active education, organizing, and advocacy, we promote U.S. policies based not on coercion and violence, but on peace, justice, democratic advancement, human rights, and respect for international law. So this year, we've been very busy. In the spring, we helped to promote and we participated in the Poor People's Campaign April 11th Moral March on Wall Street, as well as the June 18th Moral March on Washington. We've held several Zoom forums with expert speakers on peace in Ukraine, the military budget, nuclear disarmament, and U.S. policy toward Israel and Palestine. We're an active member of the Move the Money New York City Coalition, which has finally just yesterday successfully gotten the Move the Money resolution introduced into the New York City Council, which calls on the federal government to move funds away from war spending and towards human needs in our community. We've also been organizing for peace in Ukraine through outreach tabling, handing out thousands of leaflets, petitioning, lobbying members of Congress, and more. And our members have participated in numerous demonstrations for nuclear disarmament, Palestinian rights, and ending US wars over the year. So that's not a comprehensive list of our work over this past year, but a snapshot of some of the highlights. Moving forward, we plan to build on these organizing efforts and strengthen our coalition work with fellow community groups on interconnected issues of peace and social justice. We also have a unique challenge and opportunity moving forward in our advocacy, as Brooklyn is now the home of both the majority leader in the Senate, Senator Chuck Schumer, and the soon-to-be minority leader in the House of Representatives, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries. This is a challenge because these legislators, being in leadership positions, are thinking not only of their constituents, but nationally. But this is also an amazing opportunity if we build our power as a peace organization and a peace movement to exert significant influence on legislation. So we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we always welcome folks to get more involved and to help us advance the causes of peace and justice. So if any of our activities speak to you and you want to plug in, please contact us and we'll be happy to connect with you further. Our email list is also where we share resources, actions, and upcoming events. So if you're not already receiving our newsletter, we'd encourage you to sign up. You can also follow us on social media and check out our website to learn more. And I just want to thank you so much again, all of you, not just for being here tonight, but for the contributions you've made to Brooklyn for Peace over the years, financially, with your time, with your energy. This is truly a team effort, and we wouldn't be here without all of you. So thank you, and we hope you enjoy the program.
And now we begin the awards segment of our program. Each honoree and organization will receive a certificate like this that says, Brooklyn for Peace honors you as a PathMakers to Peace for your courageous vision, dedication, and leading the way. We now begin. Please enjoy.
What a great privilege it is to be here with all of you tonight at the 2022 Brooklyn for Peace, PathMakers to Peace virtual gala. My name is Thomas Cox. I'm the chair of the BFP Israel-Palestine Committee, and I'm now pleased to tell you about our first honoree, Dr. Debbie Almontaser. Dr. Almontaser founded and is a former principal of the Khalil Gibran International Academy and is a veteran of New York City's public school system. She taught special education, trained teachers in literacy, and served as a multicultural specialist and diversity advisor. She co-designed a curriculum for the Muslim Communities Project at Columbia University and for Educators for Social Responsibility, Metro. Dr. Almontaser is the board president of the Muslim Community Network, as well as the founder and CEO of Bridging Cultures Group. She frequently lectures on Arab culture, Islam, cultural diversity, interfaith coalition building, and youth leadership. I was most fortunate to meet Debbie and her husband Naji in early 2001 and to witness the formation of the esteemed civic organization, Muslim Community Network. MCN filled a glaring gap to support the metropolitan NYC Muslim community in the aftermath of 9/11 in response to repugnant Islamophobia and unlawful surveillance of Muslim communities and houses of worship. MCN just celebrated 20 years of service to the New York and Muslim American community. On behalf of Brooklyn for Peace, I am proud to present this year's PathMakers to Peace Award to Dr. Debbie Almontaser.
Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you so much, Charlotte, Oliver, and so many others at Brooklyn for Peace. You guys are just so close to my heart. I appreciate all of you for all of the continued work that you are doing in our borough, across the city, across the world. It is such an honor and privilege to accept this award from you all. I feel like I'm home and I'm with family. It's been such a pleasure and an honor to work with all of you in the aftermath of September 11th and throughout the years at different points and opportunities that have made our paths all cross. Tom, thank you so much for highlighting the Muslim Community Network's 20th anniversary. Without the support of allies like yourselves at Brooklyn for Peace, we would not be able to continue to grow as an organization. I want to thank you all for this great opportunity to have this award tonight. I appreciate you all, and I look forward to many more years of working with all of you and doing the great work that you all continue to do to bring peace and solidarity to our community. Thank you again for this extraordinary award. I'm so honored and humbled. God bless you all.
I'm Rusty Eisenberg. I think I know most of you over all these years in so many great ways. I'm vice chair and co-founder of Brooklyn for Peace. Phyllis Bennis needs no introduction to members of Brooklyn for Peace. She's been an invaluable resource for our organization since the early 1990s, when we opposed the first Iraq War and the years of harsh economic sanctions which followed. As a fellow and a director of the New Internationalism Project at the Institute for Policy Studies, Phyllis has played a unique role. While there are many left-leaning professors of international relations who work inside the universities, very few have involved themselves in peace activism. What's different about Phyllis is that she's an expert on international issues who is also profoundly committed to the work of the peace movement. For decades, her books, articles, lectures, always thoughtful, clear, and accessible, have illuminated complex issues for a wide national audience. In 2002, as the Bush administration prepared to invade Iraq, Phyllis was one of the initiators of United for Peace and Justice and remained a stalwart on its steering committee for many years. In her interactions with Brooklyn for Peace, she has been an exemplary ally. We have repeatedly used her articles, asked her to speak for us on countless occasions. Whenever we ask, she's been eager to help, flexible about arrangements, generous with her time, and inspiring with her energy and commitment. On behalf of Brooklyn for Peace, I'm proud to present this year's PathMakers to Peace Award to our friend, Phyllis Bennis.
Thank you so much, Rusty. That was very generous introduction. And thanks to all of you from Brooklyn for Peace, the committees, the leadership, the activists, the supporters. You know, for almost 40 years, Brooklyn for Peace has been fighting for peace and justice. We were young activists then. Few still are. The rest of us were young then, young radicals then. And right from the beginning, Brooklyn for Peace was one of those organizations that understood you can't fight for peace without fighting for justice. So justice was always part of your work. And receiving an honor like this, you know, the best honors are those that come from your comrades and co-conspirators and the activists who share the work that we all do together, working to bring music to our movements, linking faith-based communities with other parts of our movement, working against Islamophobia, building community organizing centers, and so much more. We're looking today at a world that is mobilized for war all around the world. Certainly the full-scale interstate wars, like what's going on in Ukraine and in Yemen, where the ceasefire is just barely holding, but also a host of civil and internal wars, insurgencies, drug wars, the leftover wars of the global war on terror, which never really ended. You know, if we look at just what they call the major wars that are going on, meaning that there have been somewhere between 1,000 and 10,000 casualties, either this year or last year, you start naming the countries and it becomes a litany: Myanmar, Afghanistan, Iraq, Mali, Ethiopia, Colombia, Congo, Sudan, South Sudan. It goes on and on all around the world. Not even until we get to the escalating threats of US tensions rising with China, with Russia. And we know that wars cause not only the death and destruction of the fighting itself, but wars cause more violence, they cause poverty, they cause environmental degradation, they cause refugees, they cause authoritarianism. And all of these wars, we look around and we see US weapons, often on all sides of all these wars. So it puts a huge obligation on us as peace workers in the United States, because US militarism is involved in almost all of the issues that people in this country and around the world are fighting for, because militarism is linked to the environment, it's linked to racism, it's linked to poverty, it's linked to misogyny, it's linked to xenophobia, it's linked to all these things. And we just are seeing the new $858 billion military budget just passed. That's, again, as has been true for so many years now, more than half the entire discretionary federal budget of the United States. If you talk about the militarized budget, not just the military itself, but if you include things like ICE and the Border Patrol and the other militarized components of the government, we're talking 2/3 of the budget goes right to the military and police with guns. And, you know, this is usually what I talk about with Brooklyn for Peace and with so many others, talk about the links between these issues, talk about the wars, the costs of wars, how wars create racism. I really wasn't planning to talk about all that tonight, although I started, I guess. Instead, I wanted to talk about movements, why movements are so important. You know, we desperately need a strengthened anti-war and anti-militarism movement. There are new organizations popping up, groups like the Dissenters, led by young people of color, a whole new generation that are taking on the empire. And all of that is incredibly important. We need to strengthen the organizations and the movements for peace that we have. We also need to be working with every other movement to bring the information about militarism, the cost of the military budget, to those movements to use in their own work as part of their agendas. Not saying, come to us, come join us, but saying, how can we help you take on these same issues in the context of your fight for immigrant rights, against Islamophobia, against racism, for women's rights, for the environment, for all of these things. Powerful movements show the power of people to mobilize against all of these evils. And we know that it's not only about the immediate demands that we either win or lose in any given campaign, but that long term, we will see more and more victories, even in those areas where we may not succeed in the immediate. For February 15th of 2003, when the immediate goal was to prevent the war in Iraq, we weren't able to do that. But that protest all around the world, the 14 million people in the streets that day, set the stage for the overthrow of a dictator in Egypt. It prevented largely the possibility that the US would have assaulted Iran in 2007. It had enormous consequences. So we have to have a very large and long vision for all of this. And we need movements that will make these links. The Poor People's Campaign, who we all work with, they call it a fusion movement. And across the board, we see that linkage of the evils that Dr. Martin Luther King taught us about, of racism, poverty, and militarism, and add climate to that. And we know now that these intersecting injustices include militarism all the time, because militarism is involved with poverty and racism and climate and all those things. Dr. King said, I knew that America would never invest the necessary funds or energies in the rehabilitation of its poor as long as adventures like war continued to draw people and skills and money like some demonic destructive suction tube. So I was increasingly compelled to see war as an enemy of the poor and to attack it as just that. Brooklyn for Peace is one of the inheritors of that vision, one of many inheritors of that vision. Almost 40 years of working within the peace movement, alongside and with other components of the broad progressive movements for peace with justice, always justice. And I'm very proud to join you today as part of that history. Thank you.
Now we're going to take a look at our journal. We want to thank all of our sponsors and contributors and advertisers for making this journal possible. We will be sending out hard copies of this to those who have placed ads, and it will also be on our website in a couple of days.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ed Golden. I'm in the Brooklyn for Peace and Justice Committee and one of the foot soldiers of the group. Bev Grant has lived in Brooklyn for over 50 years. She's a social activist, a feminist, and cultural worker. As her photojournalist, Bev Grant has captured images of Black and brown people fighting for their rights, of tenants and workers fighting for justice, and for the women's liberation and the anti-war movements. Bev is the founder and director of the Brooklyn Women's Chorus. She's a co-creator of We Were There, a multimedia presentation of women's labor history. We've just heard a sample of Bev's music. Bev has shared her music with people on the move, often writing songs to support campaigns for racial, gender, and economic justice, and to remind us of why we fight. Importantly, Bev's music has never separated the personal from the political. Bev's song, Together We Can Move Mountains, says it all. On behalf of Brooklyn for Peace, I'm proud to present our next PathMakers to Peace awardee to Bev Grant.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for that introduction, Ed, and thank you very much to Brooklyn for Peace for this honor. I would never have imagined receiving it if I had known that it existed. I've known about Brooklyn for Peace and interacted and been a member of, actually, for the many years they've been doing their activism, but I didn't know about the award. So thank you for that. It's always an honor to get something like that. I often have found my reward has been, for what I do, has been the fulfillment I've found in being of service to making change. And it's why I call myself a cultural worker. I asked Charlotte what she thought I should talk about tonight, and she suggested that I talk about how I've used music as a tool for building social movements. Well, it started with guitar lessons in 1952 when I was 10 years old, and included several years of performing in a trio with my sisters in Portland, Oregon, where I grew up. And I also sang with my elementary and my high school choirs, which were all building blocks, now I can see, for my future in music. I moved to New York in 1962 with my jazz musician husband. By then, I had given up playing music because I felt inferior as a musician. I was a terrific typist, though, and paid the bills so he could play. In 1966, I emerged from my role as a musician's old lady and got my own apartment on the Lower East Side, discovered the radical women's movement. I had acquired a camera and started photographing anti-war demonstrations, and in 1968 helped plan and photographed the Miss America beauty pageant protest in Atlantic City as a member of New York Radical Women. I also picked up a guitar around that time and started writing songs. I joined a radical filmmaking collective called New York Newsreel in 1967 and spent the next 4 years building solidarity with groups like the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords Party, the student movement, the squatters movement, learning how to make films to support their work. We screened films and led discussions at schools and in communities armed with our 16mm projectors. I left Newsreel in the early 70s and moved to Brooklyn, where I started a band called The Human Condition. I poured my political convictions into my songwriting and became passionate about the importance of music as an organizing tool. For almost 20 years, my band played in support of welfare rights, against apartheid in South Africa, for the struggle in Haiti, for Puerto Rican independence, and for the Vietnam veterans against the war. We played at Reverend Daughtry's House of the Lord Church and helped raise money for the Park Slope Food Co-op. We sang in Spanish, Haitian Creole, Zulu, Shona, and English. After we broke up, I continued writing and performing, raising my 2 daughters as a single mother, while working for the next 17 years as assistant to the executive director of the Osborne Association, a criminal justice agency, where I also wrote and sang songs for client graduations and organized a band with some of my coworkers. In 1997, I formed the Brooklyn Women's Chorus, which meets at the Brooklyn Society for Ethical Culture. Thus began a 25-year journey of arranging music for, accompanying and directing Tuesday night rehearsals and intermittent performances, all of which ended for me when I retired this past June. I'm happy to say that the chorus continues without me. They have a new director. When I became a choral director, I began with the premise that everyone can sing. There were no auditions to join. Some women came to chorus having been told all their lives they could not sing. In the chorus, they found their voice, and I got the benefit of their gratitude for simply giving them permission to sing. The social justice content of what we sang lifted all of our spirits, as well as the spirits of those we sang for. One of the most rewarding experiences I've had as a cultural worker has been as cultural director for a Union Women's Summer School, which is a week-long leadership training program for rank and file workers. I've been involved for 30 years with them, and as a staff member, I've been able to influence the incorporation of culture in all aspects of the program. This integration of cultural work with the general organizing that's going on is unusual in my experience. Cultural workers are more often looked at as entertainment or let's take a break, that kind of thing. A lasting example of my tenure at the summer school is a participatory multimedia show I developed on women's labor history called We Were There, which Ed mentioned before. I perform it at the school every summer and at other gatherings year-round. I continue to sing, but most of my focus now is on the photos that I took back when I was in newsreel. I have a book out. This is it. That's a picture of me and Juan Gonzalez with Malcolm in the background. And I am licensing the photos I took for publication and for exhibit. I'm working on a film about them, soon to be distributed by Third World Newsreel, who carry on the work of New York Newsreel, but with a focus on skill development with people of color. I feel like I've come full circle. I'm happy to know that Brooklyn for Peace recognizes the importance of culture in organizing work, and that they are trying to make that concept a reality with the Art and Cultural Collective. I'm proud that they have recognized my work and awarded me the PathMakers for Peace Award, and I thank you so much. I thought that I would sing the song, at least part of the song that Ed referred to before, because this is a song I wrote in 1975, and I wrote it in response to a strike that was going on at Co-op City, and people were making a film and asked me to provide a song. Well, I listened to some footage, and a young Puerto Rican woman gave me the inspiration and the title to this song. And I encourage you to sing along with me, and I'll just do the chorus. It says, together we can move mountains, alone we can't move at all. Just repeat that. Together we can move mountains, alone we can't move at all. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ann Fawcett-Ambia. I'm a member of the Brooklyn for Peace Board of Directors and of the Peace and Economic Justice Committee. I am privileged tonight to introduce our honoree, Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry. For over 60 years, Reverend Daughtry has been a pastor, activist, author, organizer, and humanitarian, earning him the title the People's Pastor. He's the National Presiding Minister Emeritus of the House of the Lord Churches, having served from 1959 to 2019. He's also the founding president and current chairman of Herbert Daughtry Global Ministries, where he delivers sermons and publishes weekly articles on issues in which he has been engaged since the early 60s, including the anti-violence and anti-war movements. Recently, Reverend Daughtry wrote about the dangers of nuclear war in Ukraine and the need for the US, NATO leaders, and their allies to use all their influence to demand a ceasefire and a negotiated peace. Over the years, Reverend Daughtry has participated in many international conferences and led multiple delegations to engage in issues of human rights and self-determination in places like Iraq, Darfur, South Africa, and Palestine. He was president of the African People's Christian Organization. He was also chairman of the New York Metropolitan Area Black United Front, which was founded in 1978 after the acquittal of the white policeman who murdered 15-year-old Black youth Randolph Evans. I met Reverend Daughtry in 1979 when the Black United Front permitted white supporters to form a committee to assist in combating widespread media distortion about its activities. One of our responsibilities was to organize forums in white communities in Brooklyn, at which speakers from the BUF would address issues of racism or engage in dialogue with organizations like New Jewish Agenda. To quote Reverend Daughtry, as someone once said, we have three choices in life: give up, give in, or give it all you've got. Reverend Daughtry is an example to us all of a person who is spending his lifetime giving it all he's got. On behalf of Brooklyn for Peace, I'm proud to present this year's PathMakers to Peace Award to Reverend Dr. Herbert Daughtry.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so very much. You leave me speechless for that introduction. In fact, I think I'm going to run for office, and I'll need a campaign spokesperson, and you're it. I'm so honored to receive an award. I just love awards. You can give me, you can wake me up in the middle of the night if you got an award for me. And particularly when you consider, as I do, who's given the award, for what it is being given, and who else is on the program. And to receive an award from Brooklyn for Peace, whose history is long and committed, and to receive an award for peace, Pathways to Peace, and to receive an award with all of the distinguished members that have been introduced is indeed a special honor, a special honor. In fact, I could sit here all night and listen to the speakers, and I kind of feel like a donkey at the Kentucky Derby. So, but I'm glad to be here tonight, and to all of you, some of you who have struggled with us for these many years, to the person that introduced me a moment ago, for the collection that she has accumulated across the years, testified to a commitment. And so I'm here tonight as I was listening and trying to think through, really, what is it that we can do that we have not done? What is it that we can do that we have not done? I'm not sure if there's anything. Maybe the question is to intensify what we have already done, to look at the successes that we've already achieved, and so improve upon those things. We are confronted with 3 unprecedented monsters with the capacity to destroy us all. We've never been in this place before. 1, technology. Having sojourned on this side of history for 92 years, You've seen a lot of things, a lot of changes, and the technology, and that covers just too broadly spectrum of scientific achievement. I don't know that anybody even listens, or few do listens, as they discuss outer space. I heard a few weeks ago the person of African ancestry talk about colonizing the moon, and I think 1984, 2084, and African American and a woman. Well, I began to get suspicious that it was all right until they talk about who was going to do this business. So when they talk about sending us somewhere to the moon or Mars, it just conjures up in my mind. A long time ago during slavery, they talked about colonizing us in some other part of the globe, not in outer space. And then it really got scary when they start talking about AI, artificial intelligence, creating new human beings, plastic women talking back, engaging in an intelligent conversation, being put to bed, and admin creating robots with intelligence. And it gets scary because the danger is they're going to create something that they can't control and can't kill. And therefore, we become the threatened entity. I'm not sure what to say, species anymore. That's one kind of monster, the technology. We have, Dr. King used to talk about it all the time, the scientific genius of the human family has so far outstripped, advanced beyond the moral, ethical, and I would say religious, but you can leave that out if you want. But the ethical, the human, what intended to be human relations, the genius of technology is so far above, so far beyond what we ought to be relating to and what we ought to be done. I think sometime, I remember when they went to town in Augusta, Georgia, on horseback, on an old buckboard. You weren't out of style in those days. That's been in my lifetime. And now we talked about colonizing Mars and the moon. That's one kind of monster, potentially, that can destroy us. Another is nuclear development, nuclear advance. In 1945, when the bomb was dropped, we knew that something potentially with the capacity to destroy us all. And they knew, that is the scientists, the political people knew, that there were going to be advances, and this inevitability of war. It just seemed to me the human makeup makes us want to go to war. And therefore we have another monster on the scene, unprecedented. We didn't have, when I was a little fella, when yesterday, Pearl Harbor, 1941, I was 10 years old. And there was no thought of a nuclear war. Now there is. So on the one side, the technology can destroy us, marginalize us to some creation of our mental genius. War can destroy us, nuclear. It was so frightening a little while back when a bomb or a missile was dropped, shot on Poland, killing at least 2 persons. Poland, 4 miles from the border of Ukraine. And at first, President Zelensky was vigorous in denying that it was Ukraine. And after a while, it came out that it was Ukraine, and some form of missiles was dropped, shot. In other words, they were responsible. Accident, let's say, accident. Well, I wonder when, if and when an accident will occur at one of the nuclear plants. And I understand that in Ukraine are the largest plants, some of the largest plants in the world. And what if an accident would occur there? Or what if one of the NATO countries had been hit? What then? The reality is that nuclear explosion, nuclear development can blow us all into oblivion. And so we got two threatening monsters hovering around us. And the third, of course, you know better than I, climate change. I sat through former Vice President Al Gore movie, An Unconditional Truth. An Unconditional Truth. And there was so much in that movie that causes us to be frightened with what Dr. King used to say, the fierce urgency of the now. Couple of things in particular. One, he pointed out in Florida, in I think it was 10 years, maybe 20, much of Florida is going to be underwater. Florida, not 100 years from now, not 200 years from now, but something like 10 years, something like 20 years. And then to top that, he pointed out that we were all terrified when the World Trade Centers were attacked. He used that illustration to paint a picture vividly. We all remember how high the World Trade Centers were. And he said that in the years to come, the water would cover the World Trade Centers if it existed. and then showed graphs of the water slowly creeping, slowly but inexorably creeping across Manhattan. And he wasn't talking about 100 years, 200 years, but in reasonable time. Now, I'm very conscious of time. And when you've been around 92 years, you realize that you can hear the clock ticking, or you can see the sand drifting in the hourglass. But these are the three monsters that we got to contend with. I say precedented because neither one of them was around a few years ago. And we're talking about collectivity. Three dreadful, potentially destructive monsters. And here is the point, though. Here is the point. They are significantly, and it's debatable, how much of its potential destruction we caused. Not the gods from outer space or wherever, or the devils from under space or wherever, but our decision. We made decisions that have brought us this far. And it is our decision that will take us farther into the future, or will be our destruction. We have to organize as never before. And this is why I said that what can we do? I'm so proud to receive an award from Brooklyn for Peace, because you have been on the case for years, since 1984. And surely you have learned a few things, many things in fact, that can teach us. And I've heard a few minutes ago, you articulating some of the things that we can do. I think, and you can help me here, you there. I don't know that we are as aware of the threat that I've just expressed as we were, say, in the 60s, in the Vietnam War. Or did we work hard at building the movement that surely had an impact on the war in Vietnam? Whatever we decide, what is in fact an inescapable truth, we can't do it alone. We need to find the triggers, the igniters, the information that can draw us together, as we once did in Vietnam, as we once did in June 12th. And over 1 million people, can you imagine, over 1 million people came to New York, and we rallied at the UN. And it's very interesting, you know, they tell us where you can or cannot go. You get 1 million people in the street and you can go where you want to go. Nobody stopped us in front of the UN, up to Central Park. Nobody stopped us, not even anybody tried to. We have to think million again. I coined a slogan, maybe: save the planet, save the people. Everybody need to be on the battlefield. And maybe that's the first effort, is enlightening the people as to the dangers, the fierce urgency of now. And everybody can play a part. Everybody can play a part. President Biden, as has been said, and then I'm coming to the end, that there were attempts to open talks with President Putin and President Zelensky said no talks until all the land is restored, even from 2014. And I think I was thinking, how is it that President Zelensky can dictate terms to President Biden when obviously they couldn't exist today without the help coming from the US and other places? We should insist, as we are doing, there be peace, negotiation in the war. But maybe a pressure point is President Biden, that to exercise the authority of the US and what it is doing for talks with Putin. Prime Minister Winston Churchill said at the beginning of World War II, jaw jaw is better than war war. So if people are talking, who knows where it can lead? At least there's hope that it will lead to peace. If there is no talk at all, then it would seem war is inevitable. And so thank you very much. And I'm supportive of your effort, and let us continue to think through what else we can do and continue to hope that peace will come, that nations will beat their swords in the plowshares and their spears in the pruning hooks, and nation will not lift up sword anymore against nation, and there'll be peace in the valley. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Phillips. It's a very hard act to follow, Reverend Daughtry. So thank you so much for all of your words and thoughts and energy over the years and giving us hope and inspiration to continue. So I'm the co-founder, and currently the chairperson of Brooklyn for Peace. And I'm delighted to introduce our next honoree, the Brooklyn Movement Center, represented by Michael Higgins. The Brooklyn Movement Center is a Black-led community organizing group based in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. It brings together residents of Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights to identify issues of importance to them, build power, and improve conditions in their community. They've been working in Brooklyn since about the past 10 years. This is, I believe, their 10th year anniversary. And they recently have appointed a new executive director, Anthony Pierre, whom we met and got to know the Brooklyn Community Center in June 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, when they led a struggle centered around the New York City budget and played a key role in educating all of us about the way in which a budget is more than numbers and spreadsheets. It's also a moral document. We've learned a great deal from them in their approach to addressing the root causes of gun violence and finding solutions based on public health and genuine community safety. Michael Higgins is accepting the award today on behalf of the Brooklyn Movement Center. He serves as a senior housing and sustainability organizer. We knew Michael previously when he worked with the Families United for Racial and Economic Equality, one of our first PathMakers to Peace, or honorees, which had an office down the hall from ours at 388 Atlantic Avenue. And it's great to see you again, Michael. On behalf of Brooklyn for Peace, I am proud to present this year's PathMakers to Peace Award to the Brooklyn Movement Center.
Thank you so much, Charlotte. I'm so honored to accept this award for Brooklyn Movement Center and to see you and Ed and so many others from Brooklyn for Peace, not only as, I think former neighbors at the Commons, but also I think people who've been in movement for a very long time. And for us at Brooklyn Movement Center, movement is not just about doing work now, it's doing work well into the future. BMC is only 11 years old. We recently passed the 11-year mark. And, we look at organizations like Brooklyn for Peace, who've been around now for close to 2 generations and, have really, I think, made a mark, not only in terms of talking about peace, but also understanding that peace is something that needs to be maintained. And it's maintained not simply through order, but through justice. And so, our work at BMC as a Black-led, membership-based organization, it's not just about, I think, organizing around certain issues, and there's no doubt or no shortage of issues in this moment. It's also about thinking about how do we build a space for people to join movement wherever they are at whatever time they're actually ready to. As Charlotte mentioned, I used to work at Fury, Families United for Racial and Economic Equality, and I joined BMC about 10 days before the shutdown in March 2020. And for me, that meant that my work shifted from doing the work of being a tenant organizer to doing the work of trying to sustain Central Brooklyn, in particular Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights. Bed-Stuy and Crown Heights, along with other communities in Central Brooklyn, have seen significant both deaths from COVID, but significant cuts that have been across the board to education, to health, to public health. At the same time, we've seen significantly more funding to the NYPD and to policing initiatives. And for us, that is not a recipe for peace. It's a recipe for not only chaos, but also it's not an investment in Black lives who live in Central Brooklyn and who hope to continue to live in Central Brooklyn. So our work has been centered on a few different issues. We've done, work around community safety issues. Most notably, Charlotte mentioned right after the murder of George Floyd in June 2020, around New York City's budget, but also, again, the issue of really thinking a vision of safety that includes all of us and not just some of us. We've also done work around education in the past. We also are doing work as an incubator for the Central Brooklyn Food Co-op, and in kind of connecting the residents of Central Brooklyn who have long lived in what I would call a food desert, to not only fresh groceries and fresh produce, but a real kind of solidarity economy that's been building and in the works for decades around not only food, but economic justice. So I'll end it here. And I want to thank you all again for this honor and privilege. We hope to be in movement, both on the streets and working and organizing for many years and hopefully many decades to come. Thank you.
Okay, so that's been it for us this evening, but in order to stay informed of our activities and actions and things that you can do for peace, you can visit our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, and you can also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I don't really know if I want to say that, but anyway, we will send out via an email to all attendees a link to a video of tonight's event. And I want to thank you all for being here and supporting this gala and helping us honor this year's recipients. We also thank you for your generous contributions over the years that truly has made it possible for us to continue our mission of peace and social justice. I'm going to run a couple of slides and then I'm going to do another video of Bev. So feel free to, hang in until that's over with. But have a wonderful evening and thank you so much for being here.